Millionaire divorced his wife, not knowing she was pregnant with twins. 20 years later, the millionaire begs her for help. The hospital corridor echoed with Julian Morty's footsteps as he approached the ICU. His heart hammered against his ribs, the world narrowing to this moment. Wait. A woman's voice stopped him, a voice that had haunted his dreams for 20 years. Sienna stood before him, her eyes filled with tears and fury. Before you go in there, you need to understand something. Those boys have lived their entire lives without you. They've never had fancy vacations or private schools or designer clothes, but they've had love, constant, unwavering love, while you lived in your tower of wealth and regret. Julian's voice broke. Please, Sienna, let me see them. At me, she commanded. 20 years ago, you threw me away like garbage based on lies. Now you're about to meet the sons you never knew existed, sons who are dying because of a heart condition they inherited from you. Julian fell to his knees, a broken man confronting his greatest mistake. I will give everything, my fortune, my life, just let me save them. Please. Sienna's whisper cut deeper than a scream. Your money can't buy back 20 years, Julian. Welcome to Mr. Cael Stories, where second chances come at the highest price. If you've ever wondered about second chances, stay with me until the end. Drop a like if you believe true love deserves forgiveness, and subscribe to Mr. Cael Stories for more tales that will touch your heart. 20 years ago, Julian Morty wasn't just wealthy, he was untouchable. His real estate empire spanned 3 continents. His name adorned gleaming skyscrapers. Business magazines fought for exclusive interviews with the man who turned everything he touched into gold, but wealth had built walls around Julian's heart. His penthouse overlooking the city skyline felt as empty as his calendar was full. Endless meetings, acquisitions, and galas filled his days but left his nights hollow, until that rainy evening when his driver took a wrong turn and Julian ended up at a small jazz club in the French Quarter. Sir, I can turn around, his driver offered. Julian checked his watch. His next meeting wasn't until morning. No, let me out here. Club was intimate, smoky, and authentic, nothing like the polished venues his social circle frequented. And there she was, standing near the stage, swaying gently to the saxophone's mournful cry. Sienna Laurent wore a vintage emerald dress that caught the light with each movement. Her copper-brown curls cascaded down her back, and when she smiled at something the bartender said, Julian felt a tug in his chest he couldn't explain. He approached her with none of his usual confidence. Is this seat taken? Her eyes, warm amber with flecks of gold, studied him with amused curiosity. Depends on whether you're actually going to listen to the music or just pretend to while checking your phone. No one spoke to Julian Morty that way. No one challenged him. Everyone wanted something from him. I left my phone in the car, he replied, the first honest thing he'd said to a stranger in years. She nodded toward the seat. Then it's all yours. They talked until closing time. About everything except his money and her beauty, the 2 things people usually reduce them to. Sienna worked as a victim advocate at a women's shelter. She believed in second chances because she'd been given one herself. She laughed with her entire body and listened with her whole heart. Most people want to impress me, Julian confessed, as they walked together under the streetlights. I'm not most people, she answered simply. Their courtship scandalized New York's elite. His mother warned him about that girl's intentions. His business partner, Marcus, insisted on background checks. His lawyer demanded a prenuptial agreement that could protect Fort Knox. They think I'm after your money, Sienna said one night, curled against him on his balcony. Julian kissed her forehead. And what are you really after? Just the man, not the millionaire. They married 6 months later in a private ceremony. Sienna moved into his penthouse but refused to quit her job. I need purpose beyond luxury, she explained, and Julian loved her more for it. She transformed his sterile penthouse into a home. Fresh flowers appeared in forgotten corners. Jazz played softly from hidden speakers. She knew the names of his staff's children and remembered their birthdays. You've changed, Marcus commented during a business lunch, not bothering to hide his disapproval. Julian smiled. For the better. Their mornings developed a rhythm. Sienna would wake first, humming New Orleans melodies while selecting his suits with loving care. Julian would watch her move through their bedroom, wondering how he'd lived before her. You don't have to do that, he'd say. We have staff. Your staff treats your suits like they're afraid of them, she'd reply. I treat them like I adore the man who wears them. Those moments, quiet, intimate, filled with casual tenderness, were when Julian felt truly wealthy. This story of love found and tragically lost resonates with you. Hit the like button. I want to know if you believe Julian deserves a second chance after what's coming next. 3 years into their marriage, Julian believed he'd found forever. Each morning he'd kiss Sienna goodbye at their door. Each evening he'd return to find her waiting. Their love was the constant in his chaotic world of acquisitions and deals, until the day everything changed. The envelope arrived during a routine business lunch. No return address. His assistant delivered it with an apologetic smile. This came by private courier, marked urgent and confidential. Julian opened it while discussing quarterly projections with his executive team. The conversation around him continued, but Julian's world stopped cold. Inside were photographs. Sienna sitting across from a man Julian had never seen, their hands seemingly touching across the cafe table. Another showed them walking through Central Park, the man's hand positioned at the small of her back. A third captured them outside a boutique hotel, standing close, deep in conversation. A note accompanied the images. "Your wife isn't who you think she is. These meetings have been happening for months." Julian's throat tightened. He excused himself and called Sienna. No answer. She was in a meeting about shelter funding, phone silenced as always. But now, that normal silence felt like confirmation. Marcus found him staring at the photos an hour later. "Julian, you look like you've seen a ghost." He glanced at the photographs sprawled across the desk. "Oh, I see." "She wouldn't," Julian said, more to himself than Marcus. "There has to be an explanation." Marcus picked up one photo, examining it with practiced neutrality. "I hate to say this, but I've seen this pattern before. A beautiful woman from her background suddenly living in luxury." "Stop. I'm your oldest friend. I have to ask, did she sign that prenup we discussed?" She hadn't. Julian had torn it up the night before their wedding, convinced it was an insult to their love. More photos arrived over the following days. Restaurant receipts, a handwritten note that resembled Sienna's graceful script. "Tonight changed everything." Abandoned Julian. Food lost its taste. He hired investigators who reported regular meetings between Sienna and this mystery man. "They meet weekly, always in public but secluded spots," the investigator said. "I can't confirm physical intimacy, but their body language suggests familiarity beyond casual acquaintance." When Julian finally confronted her, 40 sleepless hours had twisted his fear into certainty. "Who is he?" Julian's voice was ice when Sienna returned from work. She looked up, confused. "Who is who?" "The man you've been meeting. I have photographs." Her face paled, not with guilt Julian would later realize, but with shock. "What are you talking about?" He tossed the envelope at her feet. With trembling hands, she examined the images. "Julian, this is Devon. He's a fellow advocate I work with on the shelter project. These photos make innocent moments look calculated. Then why hide him from me?" "Hide him? I've mentioned Devon dozens of times. You never ask about my work. You smile and nod, then check your emails." The accuracy of her observation should have given Julian pause. Instead, it fueled his paranoia. "So it's my fault you're meeting another man behind my back." "Not hiding anything. We have public meetings about public programs." Tears filled her eyes. "Julian, look at me. You know I would never betray you." But doubt had poisoned his perception. All he could see were the photos, the receipt, the note. "I thought I knew you," he whispered. "I don't know anything anymore." Argument escalated through the night, each accusation driving them further apart. Who among you has felt the corrosive power of jealousy? Comment below if you've ever made a decision in anger that you later regretted. This story takes a heartbreaking turn next, so stay with me and make sure you're subscribed. The divorce proceedings moved with ruthless efficiency. Julian wielded his wealth like a weapon, assembling a legal team that treated courtrooms like conquered territory. Sienna had only her truth, which proved worthless against Julian's resources. "You don't have to do this," her attorney warned. "His offer is generous financially, but he's demanding complete severance. No contact, no shared friends, nothing." "Wants to erase me," Sienna said softly. The morning of the final hearing, Sienna appeared at Julian's office unannounced. His assistant tried blocking her, but Sienna slipped past with the familiarity of someone who once belonged. Julian looked up from his desk, his expression hardening. "How did you get in here? People still remember when I was your wife," she said. "Julian, please, just 5 minutes, no lawyers, no accusations, just us. Have nothing to discuss that attorneys can't handle. Then just listen." Her voice cracked. "I have loved you completely. I have never betrayed you. Someone deliberately orchestrated this to destroy us, and you let them." Something flickered in Julian's eyes, doubt perhaps. For one heartbeat, Sienna saw the man she'd married. Then his walls rebuilt themselves. Evidence speaks for itself. Evidence? She stepped closer. "Photos of me with a colleague, a receipt anyone could have written on. You built an empire on verifying facts, yet you destroyed our marriage on anonymous accusations. I want you out of the penthouse by Friday. Julian said, his voice hollow. Take your clothes, everything else stays. That evening, Sienna returned to the penthouse one final time. She wore the emerald dress from the night they'd met, a deliberate choice Julian couldn't miss. She stood in their bedroom doorway, watching him pretend to work. I came to tell you something, not to change your mind because your mind is clearly made of marble now, but because someday you'll want to know what you threw away. Sienna, I'm done fighting. I'm done explaining. I'm done loving a man who chooses suspicion over faith. She slipped off her wedding ring, placed it on the marble floor between them. Years from now, when you discover you were wrong, when you learn there was never anyone else, you'll have to live with what you destroyed. She walked barefoot out of the penthouse, leaving her shoes behind like Cinderella fleeing the ball at midnight. Julian watched from the window as she disappeared into the rain-soaked night, one hand pressed against her stomach in a gesture he didn't understand. What Julian couldn't see as Sienna walked away was that she carried more than her broken heart. She carried new life, twin boys conceived in love, who would grow in the shadow of their father's absence. 2 weeks after the divorce finalized, Sienna sat on a narrow shelter bed, staring at a plastic stick with 2 pink lines. Her hand trembled as she pressed it against her still flat stomach. Twins, she whispered to herself, somehow knowing there were 2 lives growing inside her. We'll be okay, we'll find a way. She never considered telling Julian. Not after he'd dismantled their life together with such cold precision. Not after he'd chosen to believe the worst about her without proof. Sienna Laurent disappeared that day, changing her name, moving to a different state, determined that Julian Morty would never know about the children he didn't deserve. For 2 decades, they would live separate lives. Julian in his tower of wealth and regret, Sienna in her world of struggle and fierce maternal love. Connected by twin heartbeats, neither knew would one day force them to confront their broken past. Have you ever made a choice you couldn't take back? Comment second chance if you believe some mistakes deserve forgiveness. This story takes a powerful turn as we follow Sienna's journey raising Julian's sons alone. With only a backpack of belongings and the clothes on her back, Sienna found herself at a women's shelter in Philadelphia, far enough from New York that Julian's influence couldn't reach her. The shelter bathroom echoed as she vomited for the 3rd time that morning. A gray-haired woman named Ruth knocked softly on the stall door. Morning sickness doesn't usually last all day, Ruth said, offering a damp towel. How far along? Sienna wiped her mouth. Almost 3 months. Ruth's eyes softened. Father in the picture? No, plan to tell him? He lost that right. Ruth nodded, understanding without details. Then we need to get you stable. Shelter has a 2-month limit. Those 2 months became Sienna's crash course in survival. She applied for every assistance program available, secured temporary housing, and found work at a textile factory where questions weren't asked and paychecks came in cash. The ultrasound technician at the free clinic smiled at her. Ready for some news? Sienna nodded, gripping the paper sheet covering her swollen belly. Carrying twins, 2 boys, her breath caught. Twins? Yes, see here. The technician pointed to the screen. 2 separate heartbeats, 2 little fighters. That night, alone in her studio apartment with peeling wallpaper and a mattress on the floor, Sienna whispered to her unborn sons. Matteo and Luca, she named them, her hands cradling her belly. We'll build something beautiful together. Pregnancy grew harder. 12-hour shifts at the factory left her feet swollen, her back aching. She stood at her station converting fabric to cheap clothing, hiding her growing belly under oversized shirts, drinking water when supervisors weren't watching. You should take leave, her co-worker Maria suggested. State benefits? Can't, Sienna replied, massaging her lower back. Need every dollar before they arrive. The birth came during a winter storm. No one drove her to the hospital. She took the bus, contractions already 4 minutes apart. No one held her hand as she screamed through transition. No birth announcement would appear in papers. Matteo arrived first, red-faced and indignant. Luca followed 7 minutes later, quieter but equally determined. You did this alone? The night nurse asked, placing both infants on Sienna's chest. Any more? Sienna whispered, looking at her sons. I'm not alone anymore. First apartment was barely 500 square feet, a converted storage space above a laundromat. The twins slept in a second-hand crib, while Sienna took the floor beside them. The rhythm of washing machines below became their lullaby. Sienna worked multiple jobs, data entry during days while the twins stayed with Maria, waitressing nights when Maria's shift ended. She attended online classes during precious moments between feedings, determined to earn credentials that could secure their future. Mama tired? 3-year-old Matteo asked one night, his small hand patting her cheek as she dozed over textbooks. Just resting my eyes, little lion, she smiled, gathering him close. Story? Luca asked from her other side, already clutching their worn copy of Goodnight Moon. Even exhausted, Sienna never refused their request for stories. Stories were how she gave them the world she couldn't afford to show them. By the twins' 5th birthday, Sienna had earned her bachelor's degree in social work. Their celebration was simple: grocery store cupcakes in a slightly larger apartment with actual bedrooms. But the boys clapped when she showed them her diploma. "Is this magic paper, Mama?" Matteo asked, touching the embossed seal. "Kind of," Sienna laughed. "It's going to help us build a better life." What she never told them was how she cried each night they asked about their father, how she crafted gentle stories about a prince who lost his way. She searched their faces for Julian's features and prayed they'd inherit only his strengths, not his capacity for doubt. Parents watching this, could you make the sacrifices Sienna made? Type strength in the comments if you admire her resilience. Our story continues with the twins growing up never knowing their father. The twins developed distinct personalities early. Matteo was all charisma and quick calculations, solving math problems meant for children twice his age, making friends with effortless charm. Luca observed the world through quieter eyes, losing himself in books, writing stories in cramped handwriting on salvaged paper. By age 8, they shared the same face but nothing else. Matteo played basketball in the community center, his movements quick and confident. Luca joined the chess club, his strategies methodical and patient. "Are two such different boys from the same womb?" their teacher asked during a parent conference. Sienna smiled. "They balance each other, always have." Their middle school years brought questions Sienna had prepared for but dreaded. "Everyone's dad is coming for career day," Matteo announced one evening. "Where's ours?" Sienna set down her textbook. She was working toward her master's degree by then, and patted the sofa beside her. "Remember the story about the prince and the sorcerer?" she asked. "The one where the prince believed a lie?" Luca looked up from his book. "Yes, that prince is your father." "He's a prince?" Matteo's eyes widened. "No, baby. That's just how I explain complicated things." She took a deep breath. "Your father is a wealthy man who made a terrible mistake. He chose to believe something untrue about me, and we had to separate before I knew about you." "He know about us now?" Luca asked, always quick to the heart of matters. "No, and that was my choice," Matteo pressed, "because sometimes protecting people you love means keeping them from people who might hurt them." Boys processed this differently. Matteo grew defiant. "We don't need him." Luca became contemplative, often staring at strangers who resembled their unknown father. Financial struggles continued despite Sienna's advancement to social services coordinator. Medical bills when Matteo broke his arm playing basketball. School supplies. Growth spurts requiring new clothes every few months. "Mom, why don't we ever go on vacation?" Matteo asked when classmates returned from summer trips. "Because we're investing in something more important," she answered, sliding college brochures across the table. "Your futures." They lived by careful routines. Dinner together every night, no exceptions. Sunday afternoons in the park, whatever the weather. Library visits twice weekly. These rituals cost nothing but meant everything. By 16, both boys towered over Sienna. Matteo captained the basketball team, his natural leadership drawing others to him. Luca edited the school literary magazine, his quiet intelligence earning teachers' respect. "Done an amazing job with them," Sienna's colleague remarked, watching the twins help clean up after a community fundraiser. "Especially without a father." "They had everything they needed," Sienna replied. But on nights when scholarship applications were rejected, when dinner consisted of boxed pasta for the 3rd time that week, when the boys needed things she couldn't provide, Sienna would stand in the shower where they couldn't hear her cry. Not tears of regret, she'd never regretted keeping them from Julian, but tears of wondering if her best would be enough. Their high school graduation marked a turning point. Both boys earned partial scholarships, Matteo for mathematics, Luca for creative writing. The ceremony was small, but Sienna cheered loudly enough for 2 parents. That night, Luca approached her with unusual directness. "Mom, I want to look for him someday." She didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Why?" "To know the other half of my story." Sienna touched his cheek. "When you're ready, I won't stop you, but remember, you're whole exactly as you are." What she couldn't tell them was how often she'd seen Julian's face on business magazines, how his empire had grown while they struggled. How he'd never once tried to find her, or the children he didn't know existed. If you believe family isn't about wealth, but about presence and love, give this video a thumbs up. Now, let's shift perspectives to see what became of Julian during these 20 years. Keep watching Mr. Cael's stories for this powerful turning point. While Sienna raised their sons in modest apartments with second-hand furniture, Julian Morty built an empire that spanned continents. The Morty name adorned luxury hotels, commercial towers, and exclusive residential complexes. His net worth multiplied tenfold. Business magazines placed him on their covers, celebrating his visionary approach to real estate development. But each night, Julian returned to an empty penthouse, 30 rooms of pristine, untouched space, perfection without purpose, wealth without warmth. "Mr. Morty, your dinner reservation at Le Cirque is confirmed," his assistant would remind him. "Cancel it," became his standard response. "Send my regrets." 5 years after the divorce, Julian discovered the truth by accident. During a routine audit, his new financial officer found irregularities in accounts Marcus had managed, specifically large cash withdrawals coinciding exactly with the timeline of those anonymous photos and messages. "You paid someone to destroy my marriage," Julian confronted Marcus in their boardroom, voice dangerously quiet. Marcus didn't deny it. "She was distracting you from what matters. Our business was suffering." "Out," Julian's words came through clenched teeth. "You're finished here." That night, Julian began searching for Sienna. He hired the best private investigators, offered rewards for information, followed every possible lead. But Sienna Laurent had vanished completely. No credit history, no social media, no property records. "It's like she disappeared deliberately," his head investigator reported. "Changed her name, perhaps." Julian kept her clothes in a sealed room no staff were permitted to enter. Her books remained on shelves. Her favorite jazz records stayed in their precise place beside the sound system she'd chosen. As years passed, Julian's public persona hardened. Journalists described him as brilliant but coldly efficient. Associates called him demanding but fair. No one used words like happy or fulfilled. Women came and went, sophisticated socialites and ambitious executives who recognized the advantageous connection but never touched his heart. "You should consider remarrying," his sister Francesca suggested during one of her rare visits. "This mausoleum is consuming you." Julian glanced around the penthouse that hadn't changed in 15 years. "This isn't a home, it's a monument to my greatest mistake." By the 20th anniversary of losing Sienna, Julian had everything a man could want, except the only thing that mattered: the warmth of genuine connection, the comfort of unconditional love, the family he might have had. What he didn't know was that across the city, in a modest apartment, that family existed without him. Can wealth truly compensate for love? Comment below with your thoughts. Our story now reaches its critical turning point as two separate worlds collide through unexpected circumstances. Keep watching. The gymnasium erupted in cheers as Matteo sank the winning shot. His college basketball team had just clinched the regional championship. From the bleachers, Sienna and Luca clapped wildly, their faces glowing with pride. Then everything stopped. Mid-celebration, Matteo clutched his chest. His smile transformed to confusion, then fear. He took 2 stumbling steps before collapsing onto the polished hardwood floor. The stadium went silent, then chaos. "My son," Sienna fought through the crowd, Luca right behind her. "Let me through." Paramedics performed CPR as Matteo was loaded into an ambulance. Sienna held his limp hand, whispering prayers, promises, please. "He's stabilizing," a doctor told them hours later in the hospital waiting room. "But I need to discuss something concerning, Doctor." Patel explained in gentle, measured terms. "Matteo has hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a thickening of the heart muscle that makes it harder to pump blood. It's genetic." "Will he recover?" Luca asked, his voice smaller than Sienna had heard since childhood. "For now, yes, but his condition will worsen without intervention. And Luca, you need to be tested immediately. If Matteo has this condition, I might too," Luca finished. The tests confirmed their fears. Both twins carried the same genetic defect, a time bomb in their chests, ticking at different rates. "Most promising treatment is stem cell therapy," Dr. Patel explained, "but the highest success rates come from cells harvested from a biological parent. Do you have contact with their father?" Sienna felt the floor tilt beneath her. "No, Mrs. Laurent, I don't want to overstep, but Matteo's condition is advancing rapidly. Luca's will follow. Without the biological father's stem cells, their prognosis is limited." That night, alone in her apartment, Sienna stared at a business magazine cover featuring Julian Morty's face. She'd kept it hidden for years, a reminder of what she'd walked away from, what she'd protected her boys from. Now that same man might be their only chance for survival. With trembling fingers, she dialed a number she'd memorized but never used. The private line to Julian's office, that hadn't changed in 20 years. He answered on the third ring. "Julian," she said, her voice suddenly steady, "your sons are dying. Is family about blood or about love? Sometimes it must be both. Type healing if you believe even the deepest wounds can mend when a child's life hangs in the balance." Our story continues with the moment Julian learns the truth. Julian arrived at Mercy General Hospital looking nothing like the powerful businessman whose face graced magazine covers. His hair was disheveled, his eyes haunted. He hadn't bothered with a tie. Dr. Patel met him in the lobby. "Mr. Morty, thank you for coming. We'll need blood samples immediately." "Where are they?" Julian asked, his voice raw. "My sons. IQ 4th floor. Mrs. Laurent is waiting." Elevator ride lasted seconds but felt like years. Julian's mind raced with images of children he'd never seen, birthdays he'd missed, first days of school, graduations. 20 years of absence compressed into unbearable regret. The ICU doors parted. And there she was. Sienna stood in the corridor, arms crossed protectively over her chest. She'd aged beautifully, silver threading through her copper curls, fine lines at her eyes that spoke of both laughter and worry. Their eyes met across the sterile hospital floor. Julian, Sienna. 20 years of separation condensed into 2 names. "Before you see them," she said quietly, "understand this isn't about us. This is about them." He nodded, unable to speak. She led him to a room where 2 young men waited. Julian stopped in the doorway, breath caught in his throat. They had his eyes, his jaw, but their expressions, the warmth, the openness, those belonged to their mother. One lay in bed, monitors beeping steadily. The other sat beside him, both looking up as Julian entered. "Matteo, Luca," Sienna said. "This is Julian Morty, your father." Silence filled the room like smoke. "You look like the man from Mom's stories," Luca said finally. "The prince who believed a lie." Julian's eyes burned. "I was no prince." "Now," Matteo asked from his hospital bed, voice weak but challenging, "why show up after 20 years? "Because you need me," Julian answered honestly. "And I've needed you both every day since before I knew you existed, Doctor." Patel interrupted, clipboard in hand. "I hate to rush this reunion, but we need to begin testing immediately. The procedure—" "I'll do whatever's necessary," Julian interrupted. "Whatever they need." As nurses drew his blood, Julian couldn't stop staring at his sons, memorizing faces he should have known from birth. "I don't expect forgiveness," he told them, "but I'm not leaving again, not ever." Has a moment ever changed your life's direction completely? Do you believe some mistakes, no matter how terrible, deserve redemption? Our final chapter reveals whether this broken family can heal. Stay with me. The medical tests confirmed what doctors had hoped. Julian was a perfect stem cell match for both sons. The procedure was scheduled immediately for Matteo, whose condition was most critical. During the weeks that followed, Julian never left the hospital. He slept in uncomfortable chairs, took calls in sterile corridors, and conducted business from laptops balanced on cafeteria trays. "You don't have to stay," Sienna told him on the third night, finding him reviewing documents at 2 a.m. outside Matteo's room. "Yes, I do." Julian closed his laptop. 20 years of absence can't be fixed in a few days, but I can start by being present now." Stem cell harvesting was painful, a process that left Julian weak and sore. The twins watched with complicated emotions as this stranger endured physical discomfort for them. "Why are you doing this?" Luca asked while Julian recovered from the procedure. "Because you're my sons." "We're not though," Luca countered. "Not really. Biology, yes, but sons, you didn't raise us. You didn't comfort us during nightmares or help with homework or teach us to drive." Julian nodded, accepting the truth of those words. "I missed everything that mattered. But I'm hoping to be part of whatever comes next, if you'll allow it." Matteo's procedure came first. The waiting room became their shared territory, Julian and Sienna occupying opposite corners, connected by mutual worry. "Tell me about them," Julian said during hour 6 of waiting. "Please, everything." So Sienna did. She described Matteo's first steps at 10 months, Luca's fascination with storytelling, their different approaches to challenges, their shared loyalty to each other. "Never had much," she finished, "but they've never felt unloved." "You did everything right," Julian said, his voice breaking. "While I built empty towers, you built men of character." Medical news came gradually, Matteo's body accepting the treatment, his heart function improving, Luca's preventative therapy working as hoped. As physical healing progressed, emotional barriers slowly lowered. Julian brought Luca journals made of fine leather for his writing. He discussed advanced mathematics with Matteo during recovery walks around the hospital floor. Small moments accumulated, Julian learning how both boys took their coffee, the twins discovering their father's dry sense of humor, shared meals in hospital rooms where conversation gradually flowed more naturally. Sienna watched this cautious reconciliation with guarded hope. One evening, she found Julian in the hospital garden, staring at the sky. "I looked for you," he said without turning. "For years, I made sure you wouldn't find us. I discovered Marcus's betrayal, the photos, the notes, all orchestrated to separate us." Sienna sat beside him. "Would it have mattered if you'd known? It would have changed everything," she said gently. "The problem wasn't the photos, Julian. It was that you were ready to believe them. You chose doubt over faith, paid for that choice every day for 20 years. He finally looked at her. "I lost the only family that mattered." 3 months later, both twins were released from hospital care. Their prognosis, full recovery with continued treatment. The question remained, what now? "We're going home," Sienna announced in the hospital parking lot, the four of them standing awkwardly between two vehicles, Julian's luxury sedan and Sienna's practical sedan. "I understand," Julian said, preparing for goodbye. "But," she continued, "we thought maybe you could join us for dinner on Thursday. The boys want to show you their apartment near campus." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't a fairy tale ending where 2 decades of absence vanished overnight. But it was a beginning. "Be there," Julian promised. A commitment to be present, to listen, to earn his place in their lives one day at a time. Sometimes, the most valuable second chances aren't given freely. They're earned through actions that speak louder than regret. This has been Mr. Cael's Stories. If this tale of redemption touched your heart, please like and subscribe. Share in the comments whether you believe true healing is possible after decades of separation. Remember that in life's most important moments, choose love over doubt, presence over pride, and family over fortune. Until next time.